Cold weather.
Home is usually the place where we feel most comfortable, a place to relax, to read, to learn, and simply to enjoy the quiet moments of life. Thomas loved his home. He enjoyed spending his time reading interesting books, studying new things, or simply relaxing after a busy day. Every season had something special to offer, but if there was one season he never truly enjoyed, it was the cold season. Thomas preferred bright sunshine, warm afternoons, and the comfortable feeling of light clothes on a pleasant day. Cold weather was different. It made everything feel slower, quieter, less comfortable. On this particular day, the weather had changed. Dark gray clouds covered the sky. A cool wind moved gently through the neighborhood. And even inside the house, the air felt colder than usual. As Thomas sat quietly in the living room, he noticed something. He wasn't hot, not even a little. He rubbed his hands together, hoping they would become warmer. But nothing changed. His hands still felt cool. He shifted in his chair, looking around the room. Something didn't feel right. Usually, his home felt warm, comfortable, and cozy, but today it felt different. Even indoors, the cool air seemed to surround him. His arms felt chilly, and he quietly wished for the comforting warmth he enjoyed almost every day. Then, a small shiver ran gently through his body. He crossed his arms over his chest and smiled just a little. "It's really cold today," he whispered to himself. In that moment, Thomas knew he needed to find a way to warm himself, because sometimes the best solution begins the moment we decide to look for one. Thomas stood up, looked toward the window, and wondered if the weather outside might explain why the whole house felt so cold.
Thomas slowly walked toward the window. As he looked outside, everything became clear. There was no bright sunshine warming the neighborhood, only dark gray clouds drifting slowly across the sky. The trees moved gently as the cool wind passed through their branches. The weather wasn't hot. It wasn't warm either. A cool breeze filled the streets, encouraging everyone to wear their jackets, scarves, and warm clothes. A few neighbors walked quietly along the sidewalk. Some pulled their coats a little tighter. Others placed their hands inside their pockets, trying to stay warm. Watching them, Thomas smiled softly. Now he understood why everyone was dressed for the cold. It was one of those days when people preferred to stay indoors with a warm drink instead of spending long hours outside. The cold weather had quietly settled over the entire neighborhood. Thomas sighed very gently. He had never enjoyed feeling cold. When he felt comfortable, he could relax, read, and enjoy his day. But today, the cold made everything feel different. Still, he didn't complain. Instead, he smiled and said quietly to himself, "I need to warm up." Thomas believed that finding a simple solution was always better than sitting still and wishing the problem would disappear. So, without wasting another moment, he decided to do something about it. The first place he thought to look was the hallway, where his family always kept their coats and jackets. Perhaps the warmth he was looking for had been waiting there all along.
Thomas walked quietly toward the hallway, where his family always kept their coats and jackets. The hallway was neat and well organized. Several jackets hung carefully on the hooks beside the front door. Thomas looked at each one, hoping to find the jacket he usually wore on cool days. Then his eyes stopped on a familiar one. A gentle smile appeared across his face. He had found his favorite jacket. It was comfortable, easy to wear, and it had always kept him warm on chilly afternoons.
He lifted it from the hook, holding it carefully in both hands. For a moment, he felt confident. This should help, he thought quietly. Without delay, Thomas slipped one arm into the sleeve, then the other. He pulled the jacket comfortably over his shoulders and slowly zipped it all the way up. Finally, he adjusted the collar around his neck, hoping to feel the warmth return. For a few moments, it seemed a little better. The jacket helped, but only a little. Thomas waited patiently. Then he rubbed his hands together once again. A small frown appeared on his face. He whispered softly. I'm still cold. The jacket had not solved the whole problem. Instead of feeling disappointed, Thomas began to think again. If the jacket wasn't enough, perhaps the cold was coming from somewhere inside the house. There had to be another reason, and Thomas was determined to find it. His eyes slowly turned towards the windows. Maybe the answer was waiting there.
Thomas slowly walked from room to room. His jacket was helping a little, but something was still wrong. The house should have felt warmer, so he decided to check the windows. He knew that even a small opening could allow cold air to enter. Carefully, he looked at each window. The living room was the first place he checked. He examined the glass, the frame, and the lock. Everything seemed secure. Then he moved to the kitchen. Again, he looked carefully. No gaps, no openings, no cold air coming through. Next, he checked the bedroom windows. One by one, he made sure everything was exactly as it should be. Were all the windows closed? Thomas wanted to be completely certain. After checking every single one, he nodded. Yes, they were. All the windows were closed. None of them had been left open by mistake. He gently touched each window one more time just to make sure. Everything was secure. The cold was not coming from the windows. Thomas felt a little relieved. At least now he knew one possible reason was not the cause. But the mystery was not solved yet. He looked around the quiet house and thought carefully. If the windows were closed, then perhaps another place was allowing the cold air to enter. His eyes moved slowly toward the front door. Maybe that was where the answer was hiding. Thomas walked toward the door, ready to check one more thing. Thomas stood in front of the front door. Perhaps someone had forgotten to close it completely. He carefully looked around the edges of the door. He checked the space near the frame. He wanted to make sure that no cold air was entering the house. But the door was not open. It looked exactly as it should. Thomas gently placed his hand on the handle and checked one more time. It was closed, completely secure. The door was not the problem. Thomas stepped back and thought quietly. The windows were closed. The door was closed. Yet he was still cold. For a moment, he stood there thinking. Then he realized something important. The weather outside was simply colder than usual, and his light jacket was not warm enough for such a chilly day. Thomas smiled. He was happy that he had stayed calm. He had not complained. He had not given up. Instead, he had checked everything carefully and searched for a practical solution. Now he knew what he needed, a warmer jacket. Thomas walked toward the closet where his family kept their winter clothes. Inside, he saw thick coats, soft scarves, and warm jackets waiting for cold days. He reached for one of his heavier jackets. The moment he held it, he already felt more prepared. This jacket should help, he thought with a smile. He put it on and immediately felt the difference. The warmth slowly returned. The cold feeling began to disappear. Thomas looked around his comfortable home and felt satisfied. A simple problem had been solved with patience and careful thinking. Sometimes the answer is not found by worrying. It is found by staying calm, looking carefully, and taking one simple step at a time. And on that cold day, Thomas learned that even small solutions can bring great comfort.